Welcome to another episode of the Bitter Jury Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Westoff, and joining me tonight for our first ever non-eviction night recording, first time we're ever doing a Sunday episode recap here in the Bitter Jury. And joining me for this first inaugural episode is first, I'll start with my OG co-host, my friend Charles Matthews. Charles, welcome back to the podcast. It's been 48 hours. I'm not used to seeing you this often in a row, unless we're in person drinking moonshine. So welcome.
It's been way too long since we've done that.
Right. So welcome to our second podcast of the week. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Like you, I'm excited that we're offering more content. It gives me more of an outlet to be able to talk about the show that I love and to argue with you a little bit. And you know what? If I get to be the enemy with you and Richard, let's go.
Amen to that. I will say, doing this many episodes in a row, I also did an episode with my sister on Friday with the live feeds. The show has ended, Sunday night's episode ended just after what happened on like Friday mid-afternoon. And so like my Big Brother world, we're going to be talking about stuff that happened like weeks ago in my mind. So that's why I'm glad we're bringing in another personality co-host tonight to join us here and talk about all things Big Brother episode 2. It's the I'll call him our Survivor correspondent and our fellow Cracked Media member here on the team, Richard Mai. Richard, welcome back to the Bitter Jury Podcast. Glad to have you tonight. How are you feeling with such a Survivor legend entering the game?
I'm excited. It's a different game. It's a different atmosphere. It's longer. It's arguably easier, harder. You can make that argument however you want, but it's going to be interesting how she adapts to it. We'll see what happens.
Well, definitely. And to just start right off chronologically on this episode, Cirea really was the entire first segment of this episode. Charles and I recapped the premiere a couple nights ago, and we were saying how it kind of felt like it was a rush job at the end. They in the last 5 minutes of that premiere episode, they kind of said, "Oh, by the way, there's Cirea's here from Survivor," and then the show ended. And I know maybe I'm in the minority here in this group, but I feel like a lot of people, Cirea, unless you're a Survivor mega fan, like you don't know the extent to how like much of a gamer she is. And so it took me a few days to realize how big a deal it was. She's in the house. But now that I know how big a deal she is, I'm super excited. But Richard, just kind of break down, who is Cirea? Give us your Survivor background knowledge. Why is she such a threat? And how do you think those skills from Survivor will translate now and that she's in the Big Brother game?
So Cirea's played Survivor 4 times. Not many people that have gone more than twice. And absolutely a legend, has made deep runs and deep connections every single time she's played. I think people underestimate her oftentimes just because she is an older woman and takes on that kind of motherly role. And sometimes that gets overlooked, but she's as much as a game player as anyone else. Argued oftentimes by Survivor fans, one of the greatest to never win the game, has come super, super close. And, the many times that she's played, she plays a great balance between the social and the strategic. She keeps her, she keeps her relationships in line while at the same time looking out for them, but most importantly herself. And she knows how to balance that well. And that's going to be super useful coming into Big Brother, because that's the one big similarity is you need to play both the social and the strategic, which she definitely has in spades.
Gotcha. And Charles, I'll bring you back into this in a second, but I just kind of want to pick Richard's brain for a second and kind of get these details that I think will help illuminate how big a deal she is and how strategic of a player she is. So looking for background information on Cirea. When she first played her first season on Survivor, how old was she? Did she come into reality television as an older player, or she aged throughout her time on Survivor?
I think she was already a mom when she entered Survivor. Probably in that like late 30, early 40. I'm not 100% sure. She was on earlier seasons and then just kept coming back. I think it was.
What was like the time span of her 4 seasons? Was it like, all within 10 years, or is this like she's been doing this for decades?
I think her first season was somewhere around 12 and her latest season was 34.
Okay. So she's been around for a minute.
Oh, and yeah.
And then real quick, you gave me a little nugget right before we hopped on this podcast. Jared has actually been on reality television before. Sorry, I said that weird. Television.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. He was a family visitor on the show.
Yeah.
You can see how much my knowledge is. I'm sure it has a better name than family visitor.
Yeah. So in the pre-COVID era, Survivor would fly out a loved one for the survivors to get a little taste of home. And in Cirie's last go around, which was Survivor Game Changers, which was season 34, Cirea actually gave up going to Jared's high school graduation to be on Survivor. So they figured it would be a nice moment to get Jared out there so he can reunite with his mom, update him how everything went. And it was really great now looking back at it, now knowing that they're both in the game, because sometimes like when the bond is strong enough or you can see that kind of closeness, Jeff Probst will delve in and ask some questions on, what that relationship is like, what it means for the survivor to have that comfortability, that safe space there with them. Because, obviously you're lacking that when you're out there. And Cirea and Jared was one of those relationships. And the way that Cirea described her relationship with Jared, as well as, just generally all of her kids, it makes a lot of sense how they're playing this game. Cirea said that they are, quote, two peas in a pod, that they talk about everything. Jared tells her everything, regardless of, even if she might not want to hear about it. It's a very open relationship, very close bond between Cirea and all of her kids. So it makes a lot of sense the way that they play this game, very much so in tandem.
Oh, wow. What I already thought was a huge advantage. Like, you just put that like extra like pizzazz on it. Like, to have someone in the house you fully trust is a huge asset. To have someone that close to you and you're that much, like you said, two peas in a pod.
It's not Dick and Danielle.
Right.
Not Dick and Danielle.
This could be
I do love my Dick and Danielle. So no.
I was saying, Evil Dick is Charles' favorite player.
Favorite player of all time.
So, but we may have a powerful duo here, to say the least. So let's jump right into how this played out when everyone entered the house. Charles, how do you think, just seeing this segment of everyone meeting Cirea and showing like Jared and her first interactions, and I'll also throw in here Izzy being able to sniff it out and like pulling Jared aside. Just give me your whole recap of the scenario, of the situation, and how well do you think they played it? Like, did you find it suspicious? Do you think they played it pretty well? And how would you have gone about it if you and a relative were entering the house together?
Well, I will say I probably would never enter with any of my relatives, but
I will say it was confirmed. They knew they were coming in.
Yes, yes,
and confirmed that in the diary room.
Yeah, I did write that down. No, I think they played it off well. Initially everybody's tensions were high and they had just come from outside, and then there's a random person standing there. Obviously, a couple of people already recognized her. I think the biggest thing for me, and I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but especially with you two on as live feeders, if I'm in the house and I've recognized someone, so let's say, because I'm probably in between the two of you as a Survivor fan. So I'm not on the Richard levels having all this mega knowledge, but I'm also not Daniel and just have no knowledge. I'm immediately going to make this person a target, and I'm going to assume that anybody she interacts with is also going to be a target.
As we saw Corey say.
Say that again?
As we saw Corey say.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
His diary room.
Yeah, and so as you all, as we approach, gosh, I guess now almost the first full week, I'm kind of throwing it back to you all. Like, what are other people saying right now? They should be a formidable duo, but they should also be targeted pretty quickly, even not knowing that they are working together in that sense.
Well, I already somewhat spoiled this for you on our first podcast you and I did a couple of days ago. But so far, even past what has happened in this episode, there's still only one other person in the house who knows about the duo, and that's Izzy. And we saw in the premiere episode during the credits them whispering, doing a pinky promise. I don't know about you all, but when I watched it full how it played out on the Sunday episode, Man, I thought Izzy kind of played it cool when I saw the premiere. Like, oh, she pulled him aside, did a quick secret, like, hey, I got your back kind of thing. Smart move. But then when I saw how it actually went down, she like yelled it, like, oh, you're Cirea Fields'
Yeah.
son. And like Bowie was right there looking at them. Like I'm sure it was just chaotic enough that it didn't land. And like also from watching live feeds, Bowie's just kind of not playing the game. She's just kind of there having a good time. So I'm not sure if it had been someone else more keen, like if Corey had been sitting in the same place, he probably would have heard and picked up on it. So um that was my first, like, I mean, it's obvious on the live feeds because Izzy she gives me vibes of Nicole from last season. But that was the first time on the show where I was like, ooh, Izzy might be a bit of a wild card. And you could see Jared was like freaked out. Like he was, again, I'm comparing my impression from what we saw on the premiere and the quick thing to what we saw in the episode. And at first I thought like Jared was playing it cool, but then when you're on the episode, he's like freaking out. He's like, no, you got to keep it quiet. You're like,
Yeah.
Well,
no, not to cut you off, but Izzy was like a rabbit in heat. She was like jumping and jittery, and she couldn't slow down, and everything was so excited. And I'm gonna keep talking, and you're gonna do this, and we're gonna. Oh, bro, I got you. No. And it was like, shut the fuck up.
Which is like when you see when the three of them are in the storage room, and he's like, "Hey, mom," in front of Izzy, and then they reveal that Izzy knows. That's the first time I had some respect for Cirea, because you saw her kind of lay the hammer down. Like she panicked for a second. You could see it in her eyes, like, oh my God, someone knows. And then she like stared down Izzy and was like, you're going to keep this secret, right? You're not going to tell anybody. Izzy was like, oh my God. And like, I've heard now from other podcasters that there's this, they call it like the Cirea mist. And that was the first time I got to see someone be misted by Cirea and just be like taken away by her persuasiveness. And we're going to see that as a common theme, I think, throughout this game. It's just the power of persuasion that Cirea has. So I'm really excited to see her play this game. I know I got emotional seeing her do her segments, really appreciating being in there with her son.
Were these your first tears of the season?
Oh, I was tearing up. We've talked about this before. I'm a crier. I was holding them back. I was like, oh,
it's early.
That's my heartstrings.
That's early.
That's the one thing we usually have in common, but I did not cry over that.
Oh yeah, Richard, you may not know this, but I am such an easy crier. Like I think it's a family thing. I think I got it from my parents genetically.
So what? They just like play an ad, or they show like sad puppies that haven't been adopted. And
don't you dare show me a Super Bowl Budweiser commercial. I'm leaving the room. If that horse and that puppy don't become best friends, I am screwed.
Hey, I'm with you on that. Again, we disagree on quite a bit, but I'm with you.
Yeah. But all right. So Cirea in the game, super excited about that. That was a major focus of this episode, but we saw some other early relationships really start to be seated here, and some early blooming. One that, it's being a producer of the content we do for our Cracked Media tennis side of the company. Like now that I watch shows like this, I like can see what the producers are going for, and they're trying to send certain messages. And so like, as a casual fan, you may have watched the 30-second clip of Jag and Riley and been like, oh, that's cute. But there's a reason they put that in the show, and it's because Jag and Riley have become quite a duo and quite a source of power in the house. And so we really got to see the first time on an episode that their relationship is shown. And it's real silly. Jag's a real easy conversationalist. He's always joking. He's got the ability to both like build rapport with someone at the same time as talking strategy, and that's kind of hard to do. Richard, what's your first impression of the Jag Riley dynamic, and do you think that there'll be a power couple's a strong word, because I'm not sure what the romantic side of it is, but a power couple as in teammates? How do you see that playing out throughout the season?
I think it'll work well. I mean, like, I think we've seen in seasons past where kind of small 2-3 person relationships form in the early days, and they do really well. I think it's going to rely a lot on how they play it off, how much they allow other people to see that. Because you could go and make it obvious in like alliance meetings or whatever, but you could also go and do everything you do behind closed doors, just the two of you. So depending on how they play it off, they could be seen as a power duo, or they could just be seen as two random people that just happen to be in the same alliance, because they're not typically what you would expect, I guess, socially, just two random people just hitting it off. And I guess that's the name of the game, isn't it? Just whoever you find a connection with, just go for it. But it's going to be a lot on how they play it off, and they've played it off pretty well.
Sort of. They're pretty obvious about it. Like they're the most clocked duo in the house for sure. But we see Riley later on this episode. We'll talk about it, get the HOH, and so I think that's really given her and Jag a leg up in creating a sort of structure in the house. But we'll get to that later. We're still talking about these early relationships forming. We also saw our first alliance of the season. Phalanx. So we see a gathering of, I believe it's Luke, Matt, Kirsten, I'm blanking,
Riley and
Jared.
Yeah.
They're all hanging out in the workout room. It's casual conversation. Looks like it's just like that first couple hours where it's just chit chat, getting to know each other. And we see Kirsten throw it down like, hey, this is an alliance now. And then Luke jumps right on that. Phalanx 5. Just instant reaction, Charles. What do you think of this first power alliance of the season? Does it have longevity? And just what's your overall strategy for this first night of Big Brother? If you were in the house, how long would you wait to start jumping in alliances? And not even jumping in alliances. My real question is, how long would you wait to start forming an alliance yourself? Like doing what Kirsten did and actually being like us 5 alliance. Do you think it's smart that she did that so early in the game? To you, Charles.
Well, the silence is my answer to your first question.
Okay.
How do I feel about the Phalanx 5?
Okay, let's just start here. What do you think about the name?
No.
What is the Phalanx?
Name, it doesn't really bother me as much as just...
It just confirms that Luke wasn't lying when he said it's really a nerd. That's really
hard. And again, I'm here for the nerd. I just, not that I'm against them forming an alliance, because that's part of the game, whether or not it's too soon. I've never been in the house. That might be a question that we ask Pooch when we have him on again, because I think that's one of those things that, kind of how Red said in his intro package, you're going to go into the house with this plan and all of a sudden it's going to change. I'm not going to sit here and tell myself that I'm going to not go into an alliance from day one, because if someone asks me, sure, I'm going to entertain it, but I'm probably not going to be the one to initiate that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this group of 5, and I have Luke in there, who's one of my draft picks, I think I laughed for a solid 5 minutes while they were forming it. Truth be told, and this may spark some a difference in us right now, but I'm not a big Jared fan, so I kind of rolled my eyes to that too at this point. I don't know, that whole alliance, and then you have Kirsten in there who evidently already has an alliance with all 15 other people or 16 other people in the house. So yeah, that alliance is definitely not going to last. I forgot what your other questions were because I was so distracted by remaining silent on.
Well, that was mainly it. I'm glad that you, as a episode only viewer, picked up on the fact that Kirsten's really doing a lot early in this game. We see the Phalanx 5. That's like the most notable part of the episode. But we see her talk to Felicia, kind of being like, "Oh, all girls. We're gonna do an all girls thing." I forget she does another. She talks with some other people in the episode as well, but she's got like 3 alliances already in the first like 30 minutes of the second episode of the season, and it's already being ratted out to other people, which is the key part. And the most dangerous time in the game is the first 24 hours, because you make one small little nothing mistake and people just need something to target. And so this has really opened up made her vulnerable, and given the other house guests something to at least use as some fodder for why they're going to maybe keep her on the block, which we'll see later in the episode. Richard, what do you think about the whole Phalanx 5, the whole position of Kirsten this first night, and what since I've known Charles here for a while, we've been podcasting for a year plus. What is your first night strategy if hypothetically if you were to ever enter the Big Brother house?
Well, I've thought of that before for sure, and it's I think the best way to do it. You can't make a big alliance. You can't make too many alliances. I think my only issue with the Phalanx 5 is that it's too big for a day one alliance. 5 is still too big for me. If I was in that house, I'm not taking more than 1 or 2 people in that first 24 hours. I'm going to start with like a 2 to 3 person alliance and then just grow from there as time progresses. Because like you said, that 24 hours is the most dangerous period. And people are going to talk because in the first 24 hours, nobody knows anybody. So everybody's going to talk to each other. So messages are going to get relayed. Person with her 20 million alliances is going to get found out within 5 seconds. But if you keep it smaller to 1 or 2 people, I mean, my prime example would be the Hitmen from 16. Day 1 alliance, only 2 people. You form it and then you let it ride and you let it grow as time progresses. And what? They were the final 2. You can't, she's playing too hard too early. And it's just, as you guys saw, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's like a common thing that we're seeing, or a common theme that we're seeing in this house. It's stuff that we'll probably talk about next episode because it hasn't happened yet on this Sunday night. But I think a lot of players in this game are just they're fans. So they know the right order to play it in. They're just like playing the game on fast forward. Like they want it all to happen so quickly. Like Kirsten tonight doing so many alliances at once, and like there's other players forming the Sacred Onion Alliance, but they kind of do it all in one single night. And so it's not as you're not vetting the people that you're aligning with that much. And then and it's like a big decision to make. Like you're forming teams that you're stuck with the whole season. If you pick the wrong people, that's my biggest fear is when you rush into these alliances.
So you're saying other people, just based off of the feeds, are already playing just as hard as Kirsten?
Yeah, they just waited like 12 extra hours so they didn't get the target.
Okay, that's fair.
So it didn't make this episode.
Right. Go ahead,
but
Richard.
I will say, I feel like you can already see very slowly 2 sides of a house forming. It almost always happens, but you can start to see it with, I would say, like a Riley and a Jag side, and then like the Cirea, Jared, Felicia side.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see it go off. It's still some gray lines because obviously it's day 1, 2, but I think those lines will get more defined as we go on, but you can already see it happening. I don't know how early it usually happens. I don't remember, but like
I was thinking about this today. It's and again, this part of the conversation's a little ahead of this episode, but I kind of just want to have it now because we've got Richard on here. I was thinking about it today, and like every house eventually splits, and it's always the exact same. It's the young athletic people one side, and it's the oddballs, old people, and the not as in your face socially people on the other side. It happens every single season.
It's the average Joes against the pretty people.
Exactly. Every single time. Even like this game where like Riley's like, oh, I love Felicia and I love Cirea. I'm going to protect the older people. Like I want the older people to make it far in this game. And then as soon as she's actually with the people she's comfortable with, she's like, I'm actually going to just team up with all the young and hot and muscular people. That's how it always goes. But what excites me about this season, and this isn't really a question, it's more of just a statement of why I'm excited for the season, is that this is the first time I think that the old oddball, not a social group has a chance. It's because they've got a mole in Jared who can play both sides. He's young and athletic, but has got real alliances, loyalties to the older players. And so I'm really excited to see that play out. Yeah, it wasn't really a question. I just really wanted to make that statement while it was on my mind. But the next order of events in this episode, and I thought this had some couple of interesting moments, was, our typical round table. Everybody sits on the couch, introduces themselves, where they're from, gives quick facts about themselves. Something that really jarred me out of the episode for a second. Red's fun fact about himself: he's delivered every one of his own kids. I'm very surprised. I'm not game for that, and 2, I'm not bragging about that either.
I'm very surprised he didn't go with a different fun fact that Twitter knows about, but
that one went.
Wait, what is Twitter know?
his girlfriend's age.
Isn't she super young?
Yeah, she my age.
Okay.
She's 19.
Hey, what's wrong with that? She's legal. That must mean he has something to offer. My boy. Cheers, Red.
3 youngins that he delivered himself. That's what he has to offer. I don't know. Did anyone else's introduction really stand out? I thought also, like, production really just like took a night off. Like that transition of Corey coming back into the game, the bed sliding out of the wall with some lightning effects, and then him just coming out.
Oh, hey guys, here I am.
I was like, come on. Who wrote this episode? Like, is this really how we're doing it?
Well, and it was kind of how we talked about in our pod in how he even left, where they had all this build up and it was going to be so scary. And then it takes them 45 seconds to drag him out. The return was the exact same way. It's like,
and then he came back, and he's like, oh, by the way, there's not any real punishment. I know I'm a little late, but next week, watch out. It's like, what's the point of that? It is a disadvantage to have an hour late start. Everyone did bond for an hour, so yeah, that is a bit of a punishment. But also, like, why him? Like, they just were like, oh, whichever competition we do fourth, we'll just give that person.
But then I like to, and you go to Richard, and you may be getting ready to say this, how he comes back and then does the typical Big Brother scripted, are you doing the introductions yet? So it's like,
there's that, but also like his return felt like the Walmart version of the BB-18 hopping out of a suitcase, but they added cap cut effects just to make it just a little bit more fancy, the lightning strike.
Yeah, I swear next year we're doing like a bingo card of like all of the tropes of the first 2 episodes.
Ooh, good idea.
Because like, let's just add this in. Matt's little diary room of, oh, Riley, like I think I could be attracted to her. Like maybe that'll be a thing. Like in the house, there's not really been like much of anything between Riley and Matt. Like it's Jag and Riley all the time together. Like that's literally a production plant, like for the Daltons of the world. They're like, ooh, we might have a showmance here with the 2 pretty people.
Well, to be fair, that's not going to happen because Izzy's going to slide in there on Matt and make sure that she takes him home.
It's gonna be the 0.001%.
Right. I will say, out of all the diary rooms, I actually I couldn't figure out if I liked it or not, but I think I like it. Corey's diary rooms, they're a lot, but by the end of the episode, I'm like, all right, like he's doing a good job. Like,
see, I don't like them.
Corey's diary rooms are just like his brother's confessionals.
Really?
I swear to God.
At least he brings the energy.
You can feel the vibe. And it's just, they're both very strategically smart and they show it off like heck. But it also worries me because they showed off Zach's strategic awareness very much so for him to get booted in the second episode. Granted, in Survivor, when they're editing, they know who finished where.
Yeah.
But it worries me a little bit that the curse continues.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'm like comparing like Corey's diary rooms to like Cameron's. Cameron, who like so smugly thinks he's got the best joke in the world. He's like, I'm supposed to be the space cowboy, but Red is the redneck cowboy. And he like looks at the camera like, you're going to laugh now? I'm like, no, I'm not going to laugh now.
Speaking of diary room, and we're taking a little bit of a turn here, but something just hit me.
I've got no outline, so please turn on.
No. Just to kind of compare to last season with someone that I loved, and I know you didn't. And then also making the same comparison to someone, to my number 1 draft pick, Red.
Daniel.
Are people already, I don't even know how to ask it. Basically how last year Jasmine, everybody thought that her accent was fake at different times. Has anybody said that about Red yet?
My soul just left my body when you reminded me that Jasmine exists in this world. I will say it's been a thing on Twitter. I today was the first time I saw it on BB Twitter. But people have been calling out Red for dropping his accents at certain times. So it seems like it might be a little put on.
Okay.
Are we gonna mention the other 2 Twitter theories, Westoff? The America one and the Luke one? Are we gonna let those fly?
I'm not sure. Tell me the America one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know that one.
People think that America is not her real name, and that's one of the
Oh,
twists.
yeah. I
That
knew
she's
that one.
that's a put on. That's like
it's
a
like
fake
some
identity.
It's gonna be a thing. Okay.
Yeah,
I know the
because
Luke one.
Like nobody could find her on social media and
Yeah.
all that good stuff. What's the Luke
Interesting.
one? I've not heard.
Oh,
That
they think Luke is a twin twist.
Yeah. So
Ooh.
here's the reason why. One is that if you go to the CBS website and look at their cast and you like hover your mouse over the pictures, it gives you the alt image text. And it's just like a series of numbers and it's like a cast _ series of numbers. And between Corey and Cameron is it goes from 376 to 378. It like skips a number. And so they're like, ooh, maybe there's going to be an extra cast member put in right between Corey and Cameron. Oh, was she on there?
No, but Cirea fits in that alphabetical.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
slot.
That seems like a big reach.
The one that people are pointing out is the Snaggletooth.
Oh, is this? Well,
they're saying that like Luke like magically appears and disappears with a Snaggletooth.
I haven't noticed the Snaggletooth.
And there's some other stuff, but yeah,
the first that
was the main one.
36 hours, Luke was like a loner, barely talked to anybody, just kind of worked out and super awkward. Like never went up to the HOH room, never had conversations about game, and then like all of a sudden yesterday morning, heads in the game, ready to play, and people are like, "Huh." Change of personality there.
That Snaggletooth thing was giving me like Davon and That's Thickums about Liz and Julia.
Oh man! Oh, thick Kate. Like, oh, she's looking a little thick today.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Now, have you? I mean, in you watching the live feeds, do you feel that?
He's never on the live feeds. He does nothing. So.
Oh really?
Him and Mimi Richard. Like, I know you've been watching live feeds. She's non-existent until like today. The first 3 days, I could not find her on a camera ever, and she was my number one pick.
I mean, yesterday a little bit finally, because I think like, relationships form, and that's not until next episode. But
yeah,
it's taken a while, and but that's also the way for a lot of players. Like most players, you could barely find them on live feeds. Like the only people that you could consistently see was probably like Izzy, Cirea, Jared. I would say Riley to a certain degree.
I will literally change the feed I'm on to go to another room, and then like 3 minutes later, Izzy pops up there. I'm like, come on, like let me just listen to another conversation.
He's a fucking rabbit, bro.
to get back on track, like I will give Izzy one thing: the way that she played off the Jared Cirea thing is how I would have done it, but more subtle.
Subtle.
I can see you, but I can see you being the same rabbit that she was, and I don't even know you.
But the thing is, like, if no one recognizes it, take it as leverage and use it to get them to work with you. And knowing Cirea's Survivor game, the one thing that she will be is loyal. When she has her people, she's loyal to them through and through. She's done that multiple times before, and you can see as part of her game. Her main group, she sticks with them, and knowing that, I would want to be part of that main group. Because she's so strategically smart, and she might pick up on things that I won't. So having that extra opinion there of someone that's as seasoned, and also having the leverage to be like, you can't come for me because I'm going to expose your secret.
I was going to say it's high stakes, because if you let her know that and she if you know her game, then you probably feel more comfortable. But if you didn't know who she was, you just knew her reputation, then telling her you might think that you're the first cut. Like she's got to get you out of the house quick.
There was a fun moment on the live feeds with that one, because I remember my buddy texted me about it. They were having a conversation. I forgot who it was. I think it was Cirea, Felicia, and a few others about Cirea's Survivor past, because they recognized her from Survivor. And I remember, I think it was Felicia who asked like, "How far did you go in Survivor?" And Cirea goes, "Which time?" And somebody else, and I think it was
Jag.
It was Jag. One of them just goes, "How many times have you played?"
Yeah, Charles and I talked about this on Saturday or whenever we recorded. Yeah, where the player was like, "You played more than once?" It's like, little do you know, she's played 4 times. Like she's a reality television expert. So, one other thing I wrote down just from that, circle introduction time. We did hear in the preseason interviews that Bowie was going to claim that she was 34, and her real age is what, 44, 45? Like she's going
42, 45, something like that.
Yeah, she's going almost a decade younger, and she did. She told everyone she was 34 on the episode. And Charles, what do you think? Do you think she can pull it off?
I mean, I go back and forth, and I feel as if we talked about, in our past episodes and in our past seasons.
I think I asked you this exact question 2 days ago, but now that you've seen another episode.
Well, and that's the thing, my answer kind of goes back and forth because I've always taken a stance on people lying in their introductions when they're doing the circle sit around and everything. I think, from a player outside, or not from a player, but from a watcher outside looking in, I don't necessarily agree with that because I think all of these things that people say, oh, well, they're going to assume that because I'm an attorney that I can navigate well, or if they and if they assume that I'm doing this, that shit doesn't matter. Like, you're in a completely different situation.
I agree with you. Has it ever mattered? Have you ever seen someone targeted because they were a doctor?
Exactly. So
you've seen the opposite, though.
It's crazy.
What's the opposite?
You've seen the opposite, though.
What's the opposite?
Derek Levasseur.
That's fair.
I think
fair point.
Well, you're just saying the opposite because he lied and was successful.
Yeah,
sure.
And
I guess,
I think
maybe the one job you might actually have to lie for is like cop or like undercover agent. But like people are like, oh, I'm like a sous chef. I'm gonna lie about that. People think,
who the fuck cares?
My thing is like, if you're a psychologist, you got to keep that shit under wraps.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
So I guess
like it doesn't work as a psychologist.
Again, it's one of those things. I guess for me, lying about occupation and age and all those things, it's kind of why I like. Well, I don't really watch it anymore, but why I liked The Circle, because those people weren't seeing each other. They weren't interacting anywhere outside of Zoom. Again, Big Brother, and why I love it. You are immersed in this house where people who have come out time and time again, everything that you assume, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen that way. So just because you're a prosecuting attorney, that doesn't mean that you can sit face to face with someone, because guess what? You're now literally lying in the same bed as this person, where you have a client and you're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. And this, you have to go through a whole, at this point, 101 days or whatever they're doing in order to get to that point. I don't know why I'm getting so angry about this, but no, it just, I just don't get when someone decides to lie about something like that. And so her following through with it, cool, that's part of her strategy. If you ask me, she looks like she's 50, so I don't really know how believable that is.
And I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah. To your point, I think every career lends something to the game of Big Brother. Every career has something that you can pull out of and just say like, oh, this works. Like, I work in a country club, and that helps me because I know how to deal with random and different types of people. Every job, no matter how menial or how big, has some implication. Like I said, there's some extremes where like you do need to hide it because people are going to have that perception, but that's extreme. That's like psychologists. That's like, I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, cop works, detective, like that kind of stuff, where like your entire job, if your job depends on reading people and weeding out facts and doing that kind of stuff, sure, all for it. But like you said, like sous chef, there's like,
or if it's just like
communication in the kitchen, but like
we've gotten to the
everything
point where
lends itself.
If your job requires you to like be smart, people hide that. It's like, okay, that's not like,
but
you can be the smartest person in the world and still be a terrible Big Brother player. Like that is not the reason why I'm going to target you. I'm going to target you more because you're very personable than because you're smart. So, I think we're in agreement there. Next big thing in the episode, and this is where I really want to have Richard, I'm kind of exploring what's your Big Brother game plan here if you ever go in the house. I know Charles is, we've had these conversations time and time again. So HOH competition, what is your what would you do if you were in the house? What is your theory of the game? what first HOH? Do you try hard to get it, or are you a Bowie? Like, oh, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. What's your game theory when it comes to first HOH?
Well, they went in alphabetical order, so I would have loved that because I have an R name. So I mean,
West
like,
off, I'm going after you.
there's a few things. For starters, I would look at so many different things. How people perceive me is the first thing I would go for. If people perceive me in a negative light, I may just go for it just to have the leverage and have what Riley had, where people are coming to you and they want to work with you. If I just think people are going to see me as like, okay, he's just there, then I'm throwing that. I don't need the attention. But at the same time, if I'm trying to think who went last. If I'm whoever goes last and I'm walking in and there's somebody and the person's holding that top spot in that moment is someone that I don't feel comfortable with, I'm going to go for it. Because I want to be comfortable with whoever's the HOH. Feel confident enough that I could even slide past that week.
Yeah, well, I've said this time and time again. My theory is you go for that HOH every time. That's the biggest bonus boost to your game you can get is that first HOH, because the entire house has to suck up to you and you basically get to set the tone of the game. I'm going to make the first power alliance. Then it's just about how good of a job do you do and how little blood can you get on your hands, because you're going to get some blood. But I even think, and sorry to go right back to Richard for this one, but I asked you this last time, Charles, so I want to get Richard's quick opinion on it.
You're good.
Do you think that there will be a change, like we'll see a ripple effect this season? The fact that we didn't have the first HOH named in the opening night. Basically, we went a full 24 hours plus without a power structure. It was everyone's on either even playing or like, yes, there were some nominees, but there was no person that everyone had to suck up to and who got to like get a big head about themselves. Do you think that'll have an effect on how this game plays out, or do you think it's negligible?
I think it will to a certain degree, and I think it's in a positive way. Agree or disagree, I think it's much like Survivor. There's, in the early stages of the game, there's no one person in power. It's just you're either safe or you're not. And so it creates havoc and, no one's above anybody else. It's always just going to be about who vibes with who makes the strongest connection. And I think we saw people start to suck up to Riley, and it's kind of an easy out and an easy, place to go if you don't know where you're going to go with your conversations. But I just think it's better if there's no power struggle, because it's much more about the genuine connection and the social aspect that this entire show was built upon.
I 100% agree with that. That was the same attitude I had. I think it'll have a positive effect that the alliance structures that were formed, I think, will be more natural, because it wasn't a forced, like, I have to be aligned with this person because of their power. Everyone got to feel out who's their people first. And then when the power came, yes, you may have to pivot, but you still already got that first 24 hours to figure out, these are the people I like. Now let me see if I can play it towards working with them in the future.
It also feels dumb for me just because she's not. What if she doesn't get HOH again? What was the point? Like, it just feels pointless. And at least you can just look holistically at everything.
What was the point of her getting it? Do you mean like?
No, I'm saying like if you're gonna suck up to Riley, and then she never wins HOH again.
Yeah, but like,
heck was the point?
Sure, and I think there's less repercussion.
For 1 week safety.
True. And I'll say this again: the fact that it was a delayed HOH was affected on the back end as well, where people may have forced themselves to suck up to her in order to gain 1 week of safety. Whereas this time it wasn't as crucial. There's 4 people already on the block. She's not putting anyone up. At most, she gets to put one person on the block. And that's the chances of that are slim. Only like 2 people who were going to win that were going to actually use it. So I agree. I'm excited to see the way it plays out. Charles, watching this competition without knowing what was going to happen, 2 questions. Who were you rooting for? And then also, who do you think had the best chance going in? Like, when you saw that it was the the cartoon, not cartoon, the comics,
Balance beam.
Boom and Pow balance beam race to the button. Did you have a favorite going in? And was there anyone that you really, really wanted to see become HOH, or opposite, really, really didn't want to see could become HOH?
Obviously, I'm biased, so I always want to see my draft team doing well. I really kind of hoped that Red would pull off a win, just because he's funny and I want to see his HOH room this early. Outside of that, I did, truthfully, now that you asked that question, didn't really have feelings toward it either way. I think
hard. Everyone's so new.
Yeah, exactly. There was nothing really going on. I think if you made me pick someone that I just did not want to see win it, and he wasn't even an option, it would have been Jared, since he was already on the block. Outside of that, yeah, it was fun to watch. A friend of mine, and I kind of made fun of him because he was a big Nicole fan.
Those exist.
Not
sorry,
last
I was
Nicole.
Franzel?
Nicole Franzel, yeah.
Okay.
He is a big Nicole fan.
Ew.
And he knows that I can't stand her for obvious reasons. But he sends me a text in the middle of the episode and says, "Riley's a fucking baller," and I responded and said, "I'm not watching right now. I'm playing tennis. Leave me alone." But then when I finally watched the episode, I go, "Oh, okay, I know why you like her." And then as I watched the episode, the entire time she talked, I just kept getting this Nicole vibe, which I hated because I want to like Riley, but I can't stand Nicole so much. And every time I saw her on the screen, she just gave me that vibe. So I'm guessing
a little ditzy, or like not like fully like.
Yeah, and even in her mannerisms, on screen, on camera, I don't know. You'll have to go back and watch. There's just a lot of weird similarities there for me that I just couldn't look away from. But other than that, I was pretty happy with it. I got to see who's going to compete. I thought it was hilarious that, 19 people, even though there's not that many people in the house, through the competition.
I know.
So that was kind of crazy.
What path are you choosing if you're playing that game?
Oh, I would have done what Riley. I would have gone all blue and just gone as fast as I could, for sure.
Blue was the easiest.
I was about to say
it wasn't. The thing wasn't swinging at you; it was swinging sideways to you.
Yeah.
Is that
what was happening in the red? Is that
it was at an angle.
Okay.
What about you, Daniel?
I'm going blue all day too. I think order is also a bit of it kind of affects the game as well. Like if you're first, and you have nothing to play to, you think you're going fast, but then you saw every person who came next was like, oh, I can go faster than that. So,
well, and I was thinking about it, and either of you can correct me. This is the first time I can remember that they weren't all in the same area as that first HOH went on. Right? Because they had everybody else hidden, and then you only saw the time when you came out of the other room.
It's been a while, at least.
Yeah, it's been a long time since they've done that.
Has it? I feel like last season.
I don't think so. But I could be, again, my memory is terrible. And
yeah, my memory is terrible too. But I'll give it to you. Yeah, first time I've done it that way. We're going with it
in a while.
I'll say though, going off of your Franzel point, I got less Franzel from Riley and more of like a Brittany or a Jordan. I think she's gonna come off smarter than she looks.
Presents. Gets overlooked, but is actually smart if you actually talk to her. Yeah, I can kind of see that.
And if you pay attention to her conversations. Post HOH, she's smarter than she comes off.
Yeah.
Franzel got by flirting, God knows. And then Paul just shot himself in the foot. I hate Paul.
Paul's probably my second favorite player ever. So
great player. Yeah. Just wasn't the biggest fan. I just had to stomach my way through those 2 seasons. I hated 19. Everything for 19 was a wrap for me except for Jody and Christmas's Zing from Zingbot.
I feel like I'm 2 different people. I loved 19. but I
Yeah.
would hate it if I watched it now. Like there's pre-live, like live feeds Westoff and post live feeds Westoff, and they're two different
Fair.
fans.
That's
So,
fair. But no,
Um,
to again reiterate about Riley, it's not that I think that she's ditzy. She just gives a very, again, their mannerisms are the same. Because again, truthfully, I want to like Riley, but I hate that I watch her and I actually visibly see Nicole because I don't like Nicole that much that I don't want to dislike Riley as a result of that.
You must have loved the proposal then.
Oh, good gosh.
was that last season?
No,
So
Mm-mm.
two.
that was a while ago.
Might have
Yeah,
been also no,
several
yeah,
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It probably was.
They have a kid, Westoff. They have a kid.
Oh, jeez.
Who's like
I'm here for. I live in the
4 or
moment.
5 now, probably.
I'm no historian. As everyone knows who talks to me on these podcasts, my BB history goes back to like BB 20. And before that, it's like I've seen them, I just don't remember them. So
Yeah. No, I'm the same until somebody sparks something in my head, and then I go, "Oh shit, I remember that."
yeah. Only other thing I had from this HOH competition is Hissam. He seems like he has the potential to be somewhat of a comp beast. He seems super fired up and competitive. He's real stoic in the house. Kind of gives me like the I'm not messing with him vibes. So I'm not a huge fan of his, but I do see him as being a comp threat going forward. So and I think that
The burlesque dancer.
Yeah. They those burlesque reps, they really did well for his training for these BB comps. So yeah, other than that, the only other what?
I don't know. That's just funny, and I love that Richard
like,
is
what did I
cracking
say?
up over there. Yeah, that's great.
I just think it's funny that he's a burlesque dancer. That's just the way he
I'm
introduced it was great. It was.
I'm just glad he doesn't have to laugh while he's performing burlesque. Good gosh.
Oh, I did like his
Unbearable.
laugh on the
episode. The best laugh of the
Really?
season is Felicia. The best laugh
Felicia
of the season
is
is Felicia.
Yeah, you're right. Hers are the
Felicia
best.
got laugh of the season.
Oh my! I can't wait to talk about Felicia next episode and all of the. She's dunked her mic pack in the water like 5 times, like 3 times in the toilet, once in the hot tub, another time in the pool. Like
somebody made a joke about that on Twitter that Felicia's a twin, and then in her changeovers they're like just make sure you dunk your mic in the water.
Someone tweeted she'll be the first player to leave the house and owe Big Brother money. All right. Only other thing I have on my list, and then we can kind of do a free for all if you guys have anything. We saw Corey go up to Riley's room, he make a pitch and actually get himself off the block. The reason I bring this up, it wasn't as clear on the episode, but from watching the live feeds, Corey was in a bad spot. Like I'd put him second to last in the house. Like maybe Kirsten, people were talking a lot of crap about her because they thought she was doing too much. But number 2 was Corey. Like they thought he was awkward. No one really had a good bond with him because he came in late to the game. They suspected that he had a secret power because he came back from the nether region an hour later with nothing happening basically. So everyone was suspicious that maybe he has a power. We've been hearing him brag about this, the fact that he can, is really good at persuading people. Like he's a debater. Like that's his, what he's good at. And so we got to see him put it to the test here. And I don't know if it's because he's a really good debater or because Riley's just really gullible and says yes to everybody, but he did get himself off the block. Richard, do you think this was Corey being an excellent persuader or Riley being a yes woman?
Both, but I think this is a very smart move for Riley. If I was Riley, that's exactly what I would have done. Jared and Corey, because Jared, obviously you want to keep that because I think he's a better relationship than Kirsten. Every time about that stupid Phalanx 5. But Corey over Felicia solely because Felicia's much safer. Like she can sit on that block and she's not going home. Corey, on the other hand, like you said, people think he's got that power, and Corey's going to be so easy to get on your side because he's so desperate. Like him and Kirsten are the only ones that don't have a set spot, a set alliance in this game.
And Luke.
Well, yeah. Phalanx 5, but we haven't seen Corey. My point is
that was dead before before the episode with the alliance being aired was even put on television.
But Corey and Kirsten, the only ones that haven't had that conversation yet in the first place.
Yep.
And he's going to be so easy to get on your side and to have those numbers in those early stages of the game where there's more people. Whereas Felicia has already got all these relationships and nobody suspects her to have anything crazy in her pocket. So she's much safer to keep on the block as a pawn because Lord knows she's not going home.
Sure.
If you put Corey versus Kirsten, it could go either way.
That's true. Charles, speak to it if you want about Corey's ability to persuade, but then also, what would you have done if you were the HOH? Who are you taking off the block, and which two are you keeping up?
I'll piggyback off Richard here. I think it's a little bit of both, of Riley being a yes woman and Corey being a little persuasive. It's kind of one of those things. It's so early, as we've already kind of talked about. Excuse me. And I think Riley being that first HOH is still also, I don't want to say is learning what it means to be HOH, but she's still figuring it out, right? And this is a different HOH than we've experienced in the past. So I think if somebody's able to come to her with something that actually sounds like a tangible something to take and grasp, then why wouldn't she take that? And in that, with that being said, Corey was able to deliver that to her. He was able to sit down, have a factual conversation, have something meaningful to say. And it wasn't just, I think what made it persuasive, especially for me watching, was it wasn't, okay, well, Blue is doing this and Heisem is doing this and Izzy's doing this, so this is what you need to do. Again, it was all about him. It was all about what that future was going to look like, and he wasn't just trying to throw 8 million people under the bus. And in that moment, I think Riley's like, okay, cool, I can trust this guy, right? So let's take him off. As far as leaving Kirsten and Felicia, I think we said this on our other podcast, or we either said it on the draft. As far as the older people go, my perspective on that, they always make it a while. Some obviously longer than others, but they don't come off as that initial threat. So it's a safe option to have her there beside, the actual target this week for sure.
Yeah. And Felicia's met my expectations. Like what I said on draft night, she's met them. Like there's two ways that older players go. You've got like Glenn from 17 first out. And then you've got, was that 17 or 18? I have no idea. 18.
Summer of Steve. That's what I was saying. Like remember Summer of Steve, and he was gone in like 24 hours.
And then but then on the other hand, you've got like Donnie or Kevin.
Well, you remember Shelly, who made it.
Oh yeah, Shelly.
Yeah. And she was one of my favorites.
What's the name from last season? Oh Lord, came in 4th place. I got a face, but I ain't got a name.
I know. I'm pulling out Shelly from years ago, and I can't come up with 12 months ago.
But they're either going to go far or they go early. And I expected that Felicia would be seen as that like maternal kind of like, let's coddle you, let's care for you. And she's done exactly that. She's also been entertainment of the year, but I just think she's put herself in a good spot.
You talking about Terrence?
No, not Terrence.
Yes. No, it was Terrence, right?
Or am I thinking
didn't make it the Final Four.
No, sorry, I'm thinking of 21. Sorry.
Oh, you talking about Cliff?
Yes,
Cliff Hogg, who we interviewed about a month ago.
Our boy, Cliff.
Who's been on this podcast before?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. That's what I was thinking of.
I still got to put that on YouTube. That's on me. But it's out on audio for all of you listeners.
My only caveat here is that all of this may just not matter at all. We've seen ever since they've been showing us live feeds since day one. It's really become clear to me that like the first week of the game is just chaos, and like everything that happens, like 90% of it becomes like negligible. I remember 2 seasons ago, Derek X was like half 1 foot out the door. And then he became like America's favorite player for a while and just killed competitions. Last season, Daniel was HOH. He and Nicole were forming a big alliance, and then they became maybe the most hated players in Big Brother history. So everything we're talking about today may be worthless in a week, but that's why I love this game, because it can change on a dime. And that's why it's so addicting. So that's all I have for the episode. Charles, Richard, I'll throw it to you first. Charles, anything you wanted to bring up and discuss?
only not necessarily discuss, but maybe to bring up, and then you all can kind of elaborate and give me some background on the live feeds. But I made a note about how intensely Mama Bear Siri already is. Not just with Jared, but even the episode that I've seen with some other people. But I loved the moment where I think he was talking about Kirsten saying something to him, and she just immediately like, no, 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 you need to clean that up. And again, it was so strict.
Just to give you the exact moment,
yeah,
he said something like, "Oh, I'll catch up with you later," and she goes, "Hey, you need to stop that. Clean that up right now."
Mm-hmm.
So no, I thought that.
I mean, have we had more moments like that I haven't seen?
Richard.
Yeah, but they ain't in this episode just yet. I would say
that's fair. Yeah.
I would say that absolutely she's doing it a lot, and part of it is because she's a great player. The other part of it is that she's kind of aligning with a couple of wild cards, and so she's constantly just having to like tamper down their worst demons and being like, "Chill out, stop." I'm specifically referring to like Izzy for sure, even like Heisem. He just like he's one of those people that can like all of a sudden get a grudge out of nowhere and will hold that grudge even though the reasons for the grudge are based off of like made up fantasies, kind of like Jasmine last year.
It's like having a bad dream and then taking it out on the person in real life.
Exactly. When you're like sleeping next to your girlfriend, you wake up, you're like, I can't believe like you're in a fight and you're like, what? It was a dream.
Leave her alone. I will say now that I've kind of brought that up, I do have something that I want to circle back on. Thinking about as we're watching from the outside in, I've been thinking this whole time how a strategy that I would maybe, if I were in the game, try to implement if I were Izzy, I would try to create doubt, right? I wouldn't have gone to Jared, and I would start conversations every day on, gosh, I wonder if there's going to be relatives in the house this year. Or, oh, I wonder, like, don't you think a couple of people look alike? Stuff like that, so that even if it comes back to you, you've just made super general statements. And then that's obviously going to create buzz about different people. I could look at Kirsten and Nicole, and say, oh, they could be siblings. All these things, and now everybody's chatting, and then that's going to make Jared and Siri a little paranoid, and then you could get to see how their interaction comes across too. See,
I'd be more worried about Siri just like taking me out because I'm saying too much stuff that makes her paranoid.
I think knowing Siri's Survivor game is why she took the route she did. Cirea was part of one of the most infamous Survivor alliances in history, the Black Widow Brigade, which, if I can tangent for 1 minute, was four ladies. The second time she played, there was four ladies. This was the season that she placed the highest on. She came in third on that season. She basically at final, I think it was final five. There was four women in the Black Widow Brigade, and there was one guy, Eric, and Eric won immunity. And they were talking, and one of them goes, how crazy would it be if we were able to convince Eric to give one of us his immunity necklace rather than we have to vote one of our other, members out? And in the most infamously stupid decision ever made on the show, arguably, they actually got him to give up the immunity necklace. They actually got him to give it up. And they sent his ass packing. And the final four was that four. Wow. Was that four-person alliance. Cirea is extremely crafty. She knows how to nurture and coddle you and then kick you right out when she needs to. And she's got good timing. That's super important, is you need to have the right timing on what you're doing. And you see it with the Mama Bear stuff. She's going to be very protective of how Jared plays and what he says and what he talks about, because he's a little bit new to this. So he's going to run his mouth a little bit.
And just give me a little bit of chills. I'm pumped. I want to see some of that backstabbing and ruthlessness.
You actually want to see that?
Well, it depends. As long as it's not against my favorite.
That seems right up Charles'
Did
alley.
I convert you? Are you converted to the Charles style of play now?
Definitely not. Protect Nicole Anthony at all costs. Oh man. No, that's There's nothing more to say. That's the kind of player we're looking for in Big Brother. Someone who can nurture alliances and find crafty ways to protect her people and kick the other people she's not aligned with out of the house. I think that'll play perfectly in the Big Brother game. Richard, do you have anything else you wanted to cover on this episode?
I want to know if y'all have any early picks for America's favorite house guest.
Ooh, wait, I don't have our cast up. Here we go.
I have two.
You go first.
I have a few in mind.
Yeah, I have two.
I'll defer to you, Charles.
Did you say me go first?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay.
Jag's easy. Yeah, I was going to say it together. Jag's the obvious.
And I'm throwing red out there.
A Jag for sure.
I have Jag and Felicia.
I think like Jag in the house is like the most popular player, so that's why. And then like he's had good diary rooms in the first episode. Like he'll be a favorite. I think Felicia will be definitely one of America's favorite. Like her diary rooms were like on point. I found them very entertaining. Like just her speaking style is very entertaining. So she's got the energy, she's got the facial expressions, she's got the catchphrases coming. I can feel them. I just see in the episode like this week isn't going to end with bye bye Felicia. So I think she'll be great. And I think maybe America. It depends if she comes out of her shell a little more and actually does stuff in the game. But I can see her being just. You know what? No, I take it back. She doesn't have a big enough personality. You got to be a main player in this game. So I'm going Jag as well. That's my pick.
But the other thing that I had noted was for the first time, they've added like an exit ticket for the have not room.
Oh, I forgot we didn't bring that up.
Kicks. Yeah.
Yeah, the kick yourself with the shoe.
That's like Felicia doing that. Great. Like
great.
That was the best
Great
part of the
TV.
entire little segment.
And also Kirsten doing it as we talked about in our episode, Daniel. That's also amazing TV.
You're talking about in the premiere episode.
Yeah.
When they had to sweat in their premiere night outfits, I felt bad for them for that. So well, all right. I think we covered just about every aspect of this episode. We went almost twice as long as the episode itself actually is. So, unless you got anything else,
I just have two closing remarks.
Go for it.
One, I did make a list of who I don't like so far, so I want to throw that out there for everyone to hear.
Can I guess who it is?
You can, but just so that if I change that, you can call me out on it later, because I'm here for changing my opinion. I did already tell you one of them though, so you can go ahead.
One of them is Jared. The other one is.
How many are there on the list?
3.
Dang it,
Matt, because he's pretty.
My theory
Matt, because he's pretty.
No, Matt's not on there.
My theory is that Charles just likes the people I don't like, and he doesn't like the people I do like. But then when I went through the list, I don't have strong opinions about that many people. So I like America, so you probably hate her.
No, America's on my draft list, and I like her.
Okay, Blue.
Kirsten?
Nope.
Cameron?
Nope.
All right, well, Cameron's
Daniel, you don't know me at all.
Cameron's my number one dislike, so you can hold me to that.
Me at all.
Bowie?
I like Cameron, but Bowie?
Nope.
Well, like, Hank, are you gonna say McCole? She's barely been on the show.
Nope.
All right, we've gone through everybody.
No.
Hisam.
Hisam, yeah.
Okay, there we go. There's number 2.
Wait, hold on. Can we real quick? This is the definitive time we're picking. Is it Hisam or Hisam?
I think it's Hisam because that's what he introduced himself as.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Hisam.
That's
and I actually wrote on my notes how to pronounce it, and I wrote "hi" and then saw like SAAM so that I'd remember that.
The thing is, we're doing better than Cirea and Jared, anyways. So,
that's true. Oh no,
that's true.
No, I'm not doing better. I did.
Hyman.
I didn't call him Hyman on the last one. I called him. What did I call him on the last episode?
Sam.
No, you called him something else.
Oh, I called him Himon.
Yeah.
Actually, I felt bad when we did the episode because I thought I was going with the Hyman. You know what it is? Himon played Big Brother 10. That's why I said it.
Oh Lord. I think the third one on your list, Charles, is Corey.
It's Jag. No, it's Jag.
Got it. Richard got it.
It's Corey.
Jesus.
Yeah.
All right, I'm quitting this.
He just doesn't like.
I know
He just
nothing.
doesn't like the survivor people, which basically means both people that I like.
It's not even that. It's not even that. But again,
It
if
took
I
us
change-
16 guesses to figure it out, but we got
if I
there.
change my opinion later on, you can call me out on it. And then the only other thing I have to comment on, and this is mostly because a friend of mine who has watched us, but also because of me, Richard, as much as I love Cracked Rackets, I need you to change the background because I try not to laugh because you look like a fucked up Mickey Mouse while I'm sitting here watching you. It's so crazy.
If I just cover one, does that make it better?
That's so much better.
It's better than like my messy ass bedroom. I don't have a blank screen like you do.
I literally have to find a spot so that it looks like this. But I found myself a couple of times tonight almost busting out hysterically because I just looked and saw Mickey Mouse. So
I appreciate the Mickey Mouse. Shout out to Cracked Rackets, the OG podcast.
that's right.
Although, thank God, no more Alex Gruskin on these podcasts because him trying to pretend like he was a Big Brother fan, it did not work. But he did pick the winner last year, so
He
I'll
did.
give him that.
He did.
Well, Richard, spoiler alert, he went to high school with Taylor, so
Well, yeah, you told me that one.
yeah. So, all right, I think we've done enough here. I think we've covered every aspect of this podcast. So, Charles, Richard, thank you for joining me this Monday night. I look forward to doing this every Monday night that we can all get together and recap these Sunday night episodes. And I'm sure we'll do more. We'll be on other episodes together. Oh, there's Richard's background. A blurry, what looks like somewhat clean dorm room, or your
Bedroom.
parents
Still at home.
Yeah, I forgot you're still in the summer, but all right. I've been dragging out this outro for like 10 minutes now. So thank you all for listening. We will be back with a Wednesday episode recap sometime Thursday evening, probably. I think that'll be me, Charles, and Sarah. But yeah, we'll be back in your feed soon. But until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you all soon.